firm. She also shared her own story about sexual harassment in the workplace on CNN.com. Also with me, CNN political commentators Ana Navarro and Andre Bauer, both of whom are Republicans. So welcome to all of you. And Eleanor, I really wanted to begin with you and your story, which you shared on the opinion page of CNN.com. And you know how difficult it is firsthand in coming forward, especially when the person you're accusing is a powerful public figure. So can you just talk to me about the emotions you grappled with in coming forward, and perhaps they're similar to what Professor Ford is dealing with?
Yeah, you know, we must recognize in everything that happens today and everything that happened a year ago and has happened even 27 years ago with Anita Hill, the cost to women to come forward to expose powerful men. And it's never easy to do that. You have to deal with retaliation, and there's a lot of backlash that comes out. So it's really hard to come forward because there's so much that you have to deal with, including being victimized all over again. And unfortunately, that's why a lot of women do not come out and speak out anymore, because of this retaliation. And it was really difficult for me. And my story was that it also is about 20 years later. And the reason I came forward, because I saw that this kept happening over and over and over again to many other women. And I wanted to make it stop. And it wasn't until many years later that I realized it was happening, and the only way to make it stop was to speak out.
It's so powerful that you're sharing it on national television, and I want to loop back with you on what may come from this story with Professor Ford. But Ana Navarro, I mean, you look at your party, the Republican Party, they already have a woman problem. You look at this president, he has a woman problem, and you now have these Republican men, right? Members of your own party who are saying essentially to this professor, you know, we want to hear you out, but the clock is ticking, and you have until Monday.
And it's under our terms, and we're not going to give you an FBI investigation. Look, sadly, the Republican Party doesn't have much political capital right now when it comes to women, when it comes to women's issues. And this can only make it worse. I think that we are heading to a point where there is going to be no FBI investigation, and I think that's tragic both for Professor Ford and for Judge Kavanaugh. We are going to have a situation here without an FBI investigation where one of two things is going to happen. Either a man who sexually assaulted a woman when he was a drunken teenager 35 years ago is going to sit in the highest court of the land, an unimpeachable office with no term limits, with no accountability to voters, or a man who did not do this is going to sit in that court with the taint of suspicion above him, with a dark cloud of doubt above him, and with a large swath of this country believing that he got away with it. Either scenario is very bad, which is why I think it behooves those who support Kavanaugh. It behooves Kavanaugh, his family, his friends, for them to request an FBI investigation so this can be flushed out as much as possible, even though it's quite possible that even an investigation would not reveal anything that is black or white, but at least it would go that next step.
Right. Andre, this is from Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. Quote, they have had tons of time to do this, they being the Democrats here and in the Ford camp. This has been a drive-by shooting when it comes to Kavanaugh. I'll listen to the lady, but we're going to bring this to a close. I mean, you have a stepdaughter. How would you feel if this is how she was treated?
It definitely concerns me, and I think, clearly it is a difficult situation. But just a couple quick thoughts, and it does seem that politics has played an issue in this, in the fact that Senator Feinstein had this information. At least 3 times we know she met with Judge Kavanaugh. Not one time did she confront him with this information. So if, in fact, she had this information,
well, she was asked not to. Let's just always remember, Professor Ford didn't want to come forward, and she was respecting her wishes.
And again, and I would bring that point up as well, Professor Ford, on numerous occasions, Judge Kavanaugh has appeared before the Senate for confirmation at different levels upon the bench, and this issue never came up. And it's very clouded, her memory or anyone else's memory of this, so I want to give her the benefit of the doubt, like so many people, not just Republicans, everybody. I hate to make it more partisan, but everybody wants to give her the benefit of the doubt, and they say, look, come before Congress. We'll come to you. let's get the
Right.
facts. And so I think that there's no problem in garnering those facts, but we're getting a whole lot of accusation but very little facts, and it's concerning when you're on the threshold of nominate or of confirming a Supreme Court justice that's been before the Senate many times, that this has been around for decades, and this has never been brought up. We've never seen any other pattern whatsoever from Judge Kavanaugh, not another accuser, no pattern that would illustrate any type of this behavior whatsoever. So I tread lightly on saying, hey, let's immediately stop everything because one person who we know is very active in politics brings this up now.
No,
But
these
Brooke,
are the
Brooke,
options.
This is not about sexual harassment.
If it was one time when he was 17 years old and drunk 35 years ago, do you think that's disqualifying?
But look, here's the issue.
Well, hang on. Let's have an answer.
I'm asking Andre.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear his answer. Is it if
for a
at
Supreme Court
17 years
justice
of age and drunk, he sexually assaulted this woman, is it disqualifying to sit on the Supreme Court?
It is definitely a question, but Anna, my understanding, and I could be wrong, my understanding is he never sexually assaulted her. My understanding is her accusation is he made an attempt to grab a garment she was wearing and pull it off of her. But
she had her full bathing suit on. She had clothes over. This is according to her, and she feels as though with a hand on her mouth, she felt that her life was at stake. She felt that she was sexually harassed. Right. He was too drunk, according to her, you know, thank goodness, to do anything more. But, you know, she says it was physical and sexual harassment, her words.
You know, can I just say one thing? Sexual harassment is not about... Sorry, thank you. Sexual harassment and assault is not a partisan issue. She clearly brought this up 30 years later because this is a man who's going to be at the highest level of the Supreme Court. He's going to be there, and to be on the Supreme Court justice, you need to have good judgment and good character. So she clearly thought that this is someone that she should bring it up for that reason.
Do you think, Eleanor, same question to you, if he was a 17-year-old kid, and again, if her accusations are true and you believe her side of the story, should that be disqualifying all these decades later, after he's proven himself as this family man and this judge and gone through 6 FBI background checks, came out clean? Should that be a disqualifying factor?
Look, I stand behind her. I think what she did was incredibly brave. She has a lot more to risk than anybody. She came out, she told her story, and she's going to be victimized and demonized because of this. What's going to happen to her is what happened to Anita Hill. This was 27 years ago what happened to Anita Hill, and we've seen that nothing has changed. There's been no progress because this is what's happening to her, is what's happening to happened to Anita Hill, and she's going to be really demonized and victimized, and she's a victim. She's going to be victimized again. What happened to her back then is going to happen to her again in front of the media, and that's not fair. So I stand behind her as a victim, as someone who's been brave enough to speak out and tell her story, because it's going to get a lot worse, unfortunately, for her.
And let's also remember that, you know, she spoke out 30 years later, but we are in a completely different era today. We are in a different era probably since the last 12 months. We are in the midst of this Me Too movement where so many women who had been silent for years and decades have found the courage not to remain silent because they thought it had changed and that there was going to be more support and more solidarity with the victim than with the accuser, which used to be the case. And Brooke, let me just say, for me, it is disqualifying. If he did it, it is disqualifying, and it is a big if. And I know I have friends who tell me, look, he was 17, he was drunk. We can't judge people by one act of what happened when they were drunken teenagers. The problem is that it is for the highest court of the land, an unimpeachable office for life, with no other accountability. There are no do-overs. I heard former Senator, Republican Senator Nancy Kassenbaum on CNN a couple of days ago on New Day talk about how she regretted her vote for Clarence Thomas, not because of the sexual assault or harassment issue with Anita Hill, but because she now thinks he didn't have the intellect and judicial precedence. But here's the problem. There are no mulligans. There are no do-overs. You get one shot at this apple. So I don't understand what's the big deal about pushing it back a week and having an FBI investigation, both for Kavanaugh and Professor Ford.
That's not looking likely from everything we're hearing, and I could continue this conversation with the 3 of you for another 10 minutes. I'm out of time. I appreciate each and every one of you, and again, that deadline, soft deadline, it sounds like, from Chair McGrassley is she needs to let them